One of the toughest faction wars, Undead Horde. I'm going to walk you through it right now. Welcome, I'm the Deadwoodjedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. We are talking Faction Wars. We are doing the Faction Wars series. We're finishing it up going through Undead Hordes, which is one of the hardest ones out there. The reason why? The legendaries are great in this faction. The rest of them, iffy. There's definitely some good rares for situational stuff. There's some solid epics for some situational stuff, but we don't have the overall breadth and utility that you find in a lot of the other factions. So this one can be a little bit trickier for people to deal with. And so it becomes one of the last ones that people get through. So I'm going to walk us through it. We're going to walk through, champions that are available in this faction. We'll walk through the bosses, obviously, that you're going to encounter and, the ways that you want to go and beat them. We'll talk about even different gear sets that you're going to look to equip on your champions so that we have an idea, if you don't have the 5 champions that I happen to be using right now, that you can do it with some others. I actually built a couple teams. We're only going to show one, but just so you know, there are multiple ways to get through this, even without using any legendaries, which we're not going to use. Now, I did try to keep the gear level a little bit lower, a little bit more reasonable for those of you that are struggling here. It's a little bit difficult on my account at this point. I've had to excise a lot of my subpar gear simply because there's not enough room and there's too many gear sets that are desirable these days. So it's not as easy for me to kind of keep things to a more reasonable level. I still tried, but to be fair, this is still one of the hardest factions. So if you have to go a little above and beyond for this faction or, one or two others, I think it's worth it to get Lydia and beat all faction wars, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. I did try to keep the gear level down, but obviously that's not going to be for everybody. And to be fair, this isn't the only way to do this, right? There are multiple ways. So even if you don't have the quality gear I have, it should still be attainable. Okay, enough preamble. Let's look at the bosses that we have in this boss, and then we'll go into the run. I'll show you the champions and call it a day. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one that comes out. If you enjoyed today's music, we have that link to the SoundStripe down below in the pinned comment and description of this video, and you can use my code Deadwoodjedi and save 15%. And of course, if you want account work, help with your dungeon teams, clan boss, etc., my team is more than ready to go for you. All you got to do is visit my website, deadwoodjedi.com. All right, the stage 7 boss in the beginning of this faction is the Protector. Now, as always, stage 7 should be simple. All you need are a few champions that are of level. Just do enough damage because the boss doesn't hit hard enough, the waves don't hit hard enough, and your champion still can. So this shouldn't be an issue for anybody. The only thing I would recommend, don't focus on the ads. It's the Protector, which means he's going to revive his allies. Just focus on the boss. You do that, you'll be fine. Now, stage 14 is the Mirror, and this one can get a little tricky. Not only does he do this like AoE with the fear, he has the debuff bread and the stealing, but he steals your buffs and gives you his debuffs, but he also does that HP exchange. This can be a little tough, especially your first time through if you don't have a lot of champions that are high enough level. The big thing here is be careful about bringing stuff like ally protection, reflect damage, even block buffs, because the boss can steal those and make your job even harder. The way to take this boss down is really just bring enough healing, and survivability. Cleanse is really good so that you don't die. And if you can do that, then all you have to do is bring enough damage to beat down the boss. This is, I know that's the recipe for any enemy that you're dealing with. Don't die and kill them. But the general idea here is if you hit him hard enough, fast enough, either you can kill him before he does the HP exchange, or once he does that HP exchange, you can kill him before that time expires. This is more than any of the others is one of the ones where you actually have to bring in some damage because there is going to be a limit on that because he will use that skill to exchange HP with you and keep himself topped up. That can be really problematic. So you can't just bring in support champions and, just wait long enough for it to go down. That's really kind of what I'm saying here. But at level 14, this should still be something that's pretty easy for most of you to be able to do. It is, this faction is not great for this, so it can get a little bit tricky, but, the big thing is making sure that you have enough healing and survivability so that you can get through the boss and he doesn't one-shot you. If you can do that, you're going to be in really good shape. And if you really need to, time the skills that you use. Okay, now the real tricky part comes at stage 21. This is where it can get really tough because it's the Dueler, who is one of the tougher bosses out there. The big reason why is his A2 removes all debuffs, so cleanses him, places True Fear on one of your champions and then stuns everybody else, takes immediately an extra turn after that. And that extra turn is going to be problematic because his A1 ability, single target, and ignores defense and does an enemy max HP hit. So the higher your HP, the harder he's going to hit. He's going to ignore your defense anyway, so it can be really, really tricky to not get one-shotted with that skill. Oftentimes, this is going to one or two-shot your champions pretty much regardless of who you're bringing in. There's a few ways to mitigate this, though. The biggest one, obviously, is ally protection. It's easy, right? Take half damage, a single target thing. That's a great way to go about doing it. Another good way is things like shields, right? Having shields up can be an extra way to basically increase your HP, even though the boss thinks a little lower. So the damage he deals is going to be less. Decreased attack is another really good way to lower that ability. Because yes, it's based off your max HP, but it's not going to kill you just off of that. The attack that he brings in is the part that, kind of finishes you off. So bringing decreased attack will help mitigate some of that damage as well. The last thing, and the thing that I'm going to be using a lot of in this, is Guardian gear. Guardian gear is fantastic for this boss. The biggest reason is it's another ally protection ability, right? And so that's definitely one way to go. Guardian gear also provides some passive healing, right? Even when you don't take a turn, you heal up. So when that stun goes off, they may not be able to take a turn, but he's still healing the 10% from the Guardian gear. So that can be really useful. The other thing that I would really highly recommend is block buffs. That's one way to avoid having to deal with any of those situations, right? Don't have to worry about the stun. Don't have to worry about the True Fear because you're blocking the debuffs, right? Block debuffs, sorry, not block buffs. So those are a couple things I would be looking at as possible ways to go through it. Obviously, revive is usually really crucial for this boss because he can one-shot your champions. So if you're not going to go the route I'm going right now with a lot of support and tankiness, another way would be to bring in a reviver and run that way. And that's, I think, a really, really good option. You're still going to need some support. You're still going to need some healing and tankiness, though, because you're never going to be able to revive fast enough to really stop what the boss is doing to you. So just kind of keep those things in mind. But this boss should be fairly decent to take down. One other point about them, though, when you reduce his turn meter by 1%, his HP by 1%, his turn meter bumps up by 2%. So just keep that in mind. The more damage you deal, the more turn meter he's going to get. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. There's not a lot we can do about it, but it is something to kind of keep in the back of your head. Now let's talk about some potential champions to bring to this fight and things we want to bring to this fight. The Undead faction is a really, really good one, right? There's lots of great legendary champions here, but we're looking at it without having legendaries available. If you're stuck on this, what do you do? Well, we're still kind of looking for the same things we usually do as far as like dealing with the waves. And this is one of those Valkyrie waves that we're facing. So it's going to be a little tricky. We need some CC. We need some ability to lock the enemy down so they don't take a ton of turns. That's going to be key. There's not a ton of it available in this faction. We also have to deal with that boss like we talked about. So things like ally protection are really helpful. Well, there's none of that in here either. Revive is really good. There's really one option. So this faction is tricky. It's really, really tough because the things that we usually rely on aren't available in here. There's not even like really spectacular healers in this faction, but it is doable. I'm going to let you know, I'm using probably a little higher grade gear than I like to for these faction war videos. Still not insane, but it's a little higher grade gear because of that, because we have to make up that difference somewhere. When we're going in it, we got to pay attention to that. The other thing that we're missing, honestly, is really good damage. There's some solid damage dealers in this faction, but nobody spectacular. That makes it a little harder. One of the best ones is Dark Elhain. Got a nice AoE ability, can do really good damage, brings decreased speed as well. Definitely somebody I'd look at. Dark Aethel is another option for you. Not my favorite champion. Not really that good. But when we're talking damage, we can't be too picky. Husk is a solid option for that as well, especially being an HP-based champion. Fits really well into this. Balthus is actually surprisingly good at damage. Anax is good, but so squishy. I don't really recommend him. That's kind of it, guys. That's really kind of it. Now, I have been able to use like Defiled Sinner a little bit, but he's not a strong hitter. He has a unique thing with his A1 where it becomes an AoE if there's 5 enemies up. So on the beginning parts of the wave, he can be pretty good, but once you kill somebody, it kind of goes to poop. So him in a stun set's interesting, but honestly not advised. there's just not a lot of damage. There's just not a lot of damage in this. It's a little bit tricky. I'm going to be using Balthus and Dark Elhain, but definitely there are options there if you want to. The big thing is there's two main champions that you really want to bring if you have them. They're going to be OP for this. One is Gore Grab, because he's got an AoE revive and turn meter boost. He's insanely good for the faction. If you have him, this becomes a lot easier because you can afford to have people die because they'll bring him back. And the other one is Vogoth, and Vogoth is also insane for this faction. Put him in a Guardian set, which I did, and I think he's ideal because he's going to heal your team all the time whenever people take damage, and he's going to help protect them at the same time. You build him tanky, you don't even have to make him fast. It's an insane build for him, which is how most people build him anyway, and he's really, really good for this. One champion that I want to point out that I really like and I've been using for this faction is Zelota. Zelota, I think, is really sneaky good. He's got the shield and heal here. He's got a sleep debuff as an AoE and as a single target on the A1. It's actually a really nice champion for this faction. Now, the other thing I would recommend, there's a couple rares that are decent here, but they're very situational. There's really only two I recommend, though there's a couple that I'll point out. First, Frozen Banshee, Grave Chill Kill. They're Grave Chill Killer, I believe is her full name. Anyway, those two can be decent for poisons. I don't know how well they will play on this stage or how much damage they'll do to the boss, and getting to the boss, allowing them even to, get to that point where they would be mostly effective. I don't know how well that plays. It's not something I would recommend, but obviously it's a potential possibility of trying to do poisons. I just don't recommend it. Bloat Wraith is interesting. He does have an AoE decreased defense, another thing missing from the epics in this faction. He does have an AoE decreased defense, even if it is a small one. That is something I would really consider as well, and he might have an actual usage there. The two I do recommend, Doom Screech, because he has a massive shield, not massive, but he has a shield ability, right? And he has a turn meter fill with increased defense. This can be useful for the waves, decreased accuracy as well, but that can be useful for the waves and for the boss itself. So that's one I would consider using. Seducer's the other one. He's the only champion in this faction that's not legendary that has blocked debuffs. Mausoleum Mage does too. I forgot. She's pretty decent as well. But he has block debuffs for 2 turns, which is pretty awesome. He also has a decreased attack, which is nice, and a sleep debuff on the A1. So definitely bring some stuff I would recommend looking at. I'm actually going to be using Seducer in this run here. But yeah, it's a tough faction because the epics are really subpar in general. There's a couple like very good ones, but even the exceptional ones like Vogoth and Husk aren't really OP in this game. So, or Seeker as well, right? Well, solid champion, but none of those are like people I would break my back for. So that's really what makes this tough. All right, so I've had to try this a few times here. It's always a little bit difficult. This is, like I said, one of the tougher ones, especially when you don't bring in your OP champions. And it's a little bit, it's tough. The Valkyrie waves are really tough. The boss is really tough, and I've got some squishy champions, so making sure that I can get through this is not going to be easy, just point blank. So we're doing our best. I feel, pretty positive about it, but it is a little bit tricky to get through everything and be successful. So we're gonna try and do our best here. This first part of the waves isn't difficult. It's the next part that gets really tricky. And we're just gonna see what we can do about it. Quite frankly, hopefully we'll be successful is what it comes down to. I'm really hoping that we'll be successful at it, but we'll have to see here as we go through. And the big thing is obviously taking down, well, you guys understand how this works. Take down the counterattackers. That's the number one priority. After that, everything else should follow pretty easily, but that one part is pretty tricky to be able to do. So that's what we're focused on. That's what we're trying to do. So I suppose in the meantime, we can show you all the different champions, how I have them geared out and stuff like that. And then hopefully come back and we'll be at the boss. Vogoth is kind of the key to this whole thing working. He's really, really good for factions, I have to say. Almost 60,000 HP, 3,000 defense. I have him in, as I said, Guardian gear, which I think is the ideal set to put him in. And he makes it so much easier to keep everybody else alive. 100% recommend that. I have him pretty slow at 160. I would definitely encourage building him faster, but he works very well at slow speeds. Now, Originally, I had him with a lot of resistance and no accuracy. I actually had to switch that up and give him more accuracy to make him work for this, because I wasn't landing the provokes and the decreased attacks nearly enough, and the waves were killing us. So made that little change, made things a lot easier, and I'd recommend you do that as well. Seducer, also built rather tanky, as you're going to notice from a couple of these champions. 50k, 55k HP, 3000 defense, 180 speed, a little bit faster. I would love to have him faster than this even, to cycle through his skills, to get more of those block debuffs up, to get more decreased attacks out, to get more of the the sleeps up, from all his different skills. He brings so much to the table, but obviously trying to dumb this down a little bit here, and kept him fairly reasonable. The Dark Elhain is a gangbuster of a damage dealer. I don't even have her built exceptionally well, but she does have good crit damage. She does have good crit rate. Her attack is not even 4,000, so there's obviously room for this to grow. And I think in this current build, I don't necessarily need the accuracy either. I do believe she has a decreased speed in her kit somewhere, and so that would be nice to be able to land that with her A2 ability. But even without that, I think we would be fine. There is some flexibility here, but the big thing is for her to deal damage. 36k HP, we can definitely bump that up too if we need to, if we're not surviving. Then we have Zelota. Zelota, obviously, in a shield set is going to be really helpful as far as getting through the beginning of each of these waves, and the boss itself. 60k HP, 3000 defense, brings a shield, brings some healing, brings some debuffs with that sleep, all of which is super, super valuable. And having the speed up, 227, is really crucial to being able to cycle those skills and keep us alive. With some squishy champions like Dark Elhain, it's important to be able to have that, the speed and the healing from Zelota. And then we have Balthus. Balthus is another damage dealer, really, the way I have him built. He can hit very hard, and 225 crit damage is going to be a solid way there. Almost 4k defense is a really good number as well. He's defense-based champion, so obviously I would like to bump the HP up a little bit more, would help him survive a little bit better, I think. But he's going to be doing a really good job, and with the lifesteal and the damage he deals, he's going to heal himself. It's just kind of what I had him in. It's not necessarily something I would recommend. 190 speed is pretty solid, and we'll get him to go through his skills a little bit more often. I would love to bump the accuracy up a little bit, but I didn't even catch that, and it still works, so I left it. All right, we're at the boss, finally. It's taking me so long to get here. Yeah, this isn't easy. It is not easy. I don't know how else to phrase this for you guys. It's a challenge. But we're gonna do our best as we get into this here. Vogoth is the perfect person for them to hit. He's going to heal everybody else up. That's great. We get the leech out there, which is nice. Getting accuracy on Vogoth is a pretty good way to go, I would say. But yeah, that's kind of the focus here now. And then I'm gonna wait one more turn, and then I do want to put that block debuffs up if I can. A2 is really not going to do us anything, but there we go. Decreased crit rate, that's solid. Get the decreased attack, that'll be even better. Shield action. And now, I think I want to put that up. So this is going to block debuff. Hopefully we'll block the stun and the fear here on the boss. Now, normally I just let this run auto, but I've lost a few times and I don't really want to run this anymore. So there we go. Look at all those debuffs. They all get blocked, which is great. That helps us immensely. It allows us to really do all the fun stuff we want to do now, which is great. I don't get to put the heal out, but I can come in with the big hit and fully heal up, which is ideal. And now we should be in a decent spot. Get the decreased speed out there. That's going to help us a lot too. We're not going to get one-shotted, which is massive for us. And so as long as we can heal in the meantime, we'll be in good shape. That was not as good a heal as I was hoping for, but hopefully it's enough. There we go. Got the shield, got the continuous heal, and we're still alive. Perfect. Now we got the decreased attack. His hits are going to do less damage for us. There we go. At this point, I can totally hit auto. I don't have to worry about it. Nobody's going to get one shot because of Vogoth. And we have the leech out there now, which means we're going to heal up considerably. So even getting two-shotted shouldn't happen. There we go. And it's going to be a wrap. Only took us a full 8 minutes to do, but we finally did it. We're able to do it. That's not too shabby. So things I learned. Accuracy on Vogoth, really good. Really, really good. The Leech helps a lot for the boss. The Provokes and Decrease Attacks helps a lot for the waves. Like a lot. If you can actually give him some speed to help him cycle through that skill, it'd be pretty helpful here. So anyway, that's the team. Worked out way better. Well, it didn't work out way better. It worked out way worse than I was thinking it would, but we were able to get through it. Now, if you can bring in Gore Grab, it's going to make that so much easier, guys. So much easier. 100% recommend that. If that is an option for you, I would definitely go that route. You don't have to worry so much about people dying. It's a huge boost. I do like Seducer, but he's definitely not necessary. And I would probably sub out Seducer for Gore Grab if I had my options here. And I think that would be really, really solid. So, or maybe even Balthus. Either one would have been good. But as you can see, it is definitely a faction that you can take down, but it does obviously take a little bit of work to do. It's not super easy. With the Valkyrie waves especially, manualing your runs can be really, really effective. I didn't use any stun sets. I didn't use any provoke sets. Those are things that can also help supplement the CC that you do have. And I would probably recommend that. I think on Seducer, that might have been a really nice thing to have brought, and it's just not something I did. Would have been good for Zealot for that matter. I wouldn't mind stunning people while I'm sleeping them. I don't think that would have been a bad choice. So there's definitely some options out there as far as how you go about doing this. So good luck to you all. Hopefully you found this enjoyable. If it is, please don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.